I think you're becoming a liability to this company. Those were the exact words Greg Whitman said, sitting at the head of the table like it was nothing. Like he was talking about a broken printer. The room went quiet. I felt every eye shift away from me. No one wanted to be caught looking. I don't understand, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My hands were cold. Greg leaned back. You slow things down. You overthink. We need people who move fast. That didn't make sense. I had stayed late every night that week fixing issues no one else even noticed. Across the table, Megan Cole stared at her laptop. Derek Shaw cleared his throat but said nothing. I've been cleaning up problems before they hit clients, I said. Greg gave a small smile. That's not what I'm hearing. Hearing from who? You're on a performance plan starting Monday, he added. 30 days. My stomach dropped. 30 days to prove I wasn't a liability. Or 30 days to be pushed out. The meeting moved on like nothing happened. But inside my head, everything froze on that one word. Liability. And that's when I realized. Something about this didn't add up. 3 months earlier, things looked very different. I wasn't the problem. I was the one fixing them. It started small. A missing data field in a client report. Everyone ignored it, until I traced it back to a broken sink. I stayed late. Fixed it. No one noticed. Then it happened again. A billing error this time. Bigger risk. I built a simple check to catch it early. Again, no credit. Just silence. That's how it became a pattern. Every week, something slipped through. And every time, I caught it before it turned into a disaster. One night, Sam Rivera from support leaned over my desk. You saved us again, didn't you? I shrugged. Just fixing things. He shook his head. You should tell Greg. I thought about it. But Greg wasn't the type who liked details. He liked results. Big. Clean, easy to show results. So I stayed quiet. I thought my work would speak for itself. I thought being reliable was enough. I didn't realize. Being invisible was starting to cost me. And someone else had already started taking advantage of it. The first time it happened, I almost didn't catch it. Greg was presenting in the weekly leadership call. I was half listening while updating a report. Then I heard it. We implemented a new tracking system that reduced errors by 40%, Greg said. My head snapped up. That was my system. The one I built after hours. The one no one asked for. I stared at the screen, waiting for him to mention me. He didn't. Great initiative, someone on the call said. Greg nodded. We're focused on staying proactive. After the meeting, I walked into his office. I think there was a mix-up, I said carefully. That system you mentioned, I built it. Greg barely looked up. Right. Good work. That wasn't really how it sounded. He leaned back, annoyed. You're part of the team, right? Yes, but then it is your work. Team effort. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Like I was asking for too much. Like I was the problem. I left his office with a strange feeling. Not anger. Not yet. Just the quiet realization that something important had shifted. And it wasn't in my favor. 2 weeks later, Greg called me into a one-on-one. He closed the door behind me. That was new. I've been getting feedback, he said, folding his hands. You're not collaborating well. I blinked. What? You tend to work alone. It's creating friction. That's not true, I said quickly. I fix issues before they affect others. That helps the team. Greg sighed like I was missing the point. Perception matters. Who said that? I asked. He shook his head. It doesn't matter. It mattered to me. Because it didn't make sense. I've been covering gaps, I said. If anything, I'm supporting. You're defensive, he cut in. That word hit harder than it should have. I'm just explaining. Take the feedback, he said firmly. Adjust. I walked out feeling confused. And something else. Watched. That afternoon, I noticed Megan and Derek talking quietly near the break room. When I walked in, they stopped. Later, Sam messaged me. Hey, quick heads up. Greg's been asking people about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? I typed back. Sam paused. Then replied. Not good ones. After that, I started paying closer attention. Not just to my work, but to everything around me. It didn't take long to notice something strange. The same kinds of issues kept happening. Data mismatches. Missed updates. Broken links between systems. But now, they were happening more often. And always in the same areas. Areas tied to decisions Greg had pushed through quickly. Just move fast, he'd said in meetings. We'll clean it up later. Guess who was doing the cleaning? Me. Late one night, I pulled up a few past incidents. Just out of curiosity. 1 turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. My screen filled with timestamps, fixes, and notes. A pattern started forming. Every issue traced back to rushed changes. Every fix traced back to me. I leaned back, heart beating faster. This wasn't random. This was a cycle. And no one was tracking it. No one, except me. That's when the idea hit. Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity. If no one else was going to see what was really happening, I would make it impossible to ignore. I didn't tell anyone. Not Sam. Not anyone on my team. I just started building. At first, it was simple. A private tracker. Dates, issues, root causes, fixes. Then I added more. Which project it came from. Who approved the change. How long it took to fix. It became clean, clear, unarguable. I even linked emails and tickets for proof. Every time I fixed something, I logged it. Every time I warned about a risk, I saved it. Quietly, carefully. One night, Sam walked by my desk again. You're still here, he asked. Just organizing things, I said. He leaned closer. You look like you're building a case. I gave a small smile. Just keeping track. He nodded slowly. Good. Because something feels off. He lowered his voice. People are starting to notice issues. My chest tightened. Not in a good way, he added. I looked back at my screen. Rows of proof. Patterns forming. And for the first time I realized. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. This could change everything. Monday came fast. Greg didn't waste time. This is a formal performance plan, he said, sliding a document across the table. 30 days. Targets that didn't make sense. Improve visibility. Enhance collaboration. Reduce errors. Reduce errors. I was the one fixing them. I don't agree with this, I said, keeping my voice calm. Greg nodded like he expected that. That's fine. But it stands. This isn't based on actual performance. It's based on feedback, he replied. From who? I wanted to ask again. But I already knew the answer I'd get. None. Sign it, he said. I looked down at the paper. It wasn't a plan. It was a setup. A way to justify what he'd already decided. I signed it anyway. Not because I agreed. But because I understood something now. This wasn't about proving myself to him. This was about preparing for what came next. As I stood up to leave, Greg added one more thing. 30 days go fast. I paused at the door. Yeah, they do. And I was about to use every single one. The next week, something slipped through. Not small. Big. A client report went out with incorrect numbers. Not slightly off. Completely wrong. The kind of mistake that raises questions. The kind I usually catch. My inbox exploded. What happened? Was this reviewed? We need answers. Greg called an emergency meeting. We can't afford mistakes like this, he said sharply. Then he looked right at me. Why wasn't this caught? The room went still again. I felt the pressure. The expectation. Fix it. Take it. Absorb it. That's what I always did. But this time, I hesitated. I flagged a sync issue last week, I said slowly. It wasn't addressed. Greg frowned. That's not what I saw. I opened my mouth. Then closed it. Not yet. Not like this. I'll fix it, I said instead. And I did. Within hours. The client never saw the full damage. But something had changed. Greg looked at me differently. Not frustrated. Suspicious. And I realized. He was starting to feel something slip. He just didn't know what yet. That night, I stayed late again. Not to fix. To watch. I reviewed upcoming changes Greg had approved. Fast rollouts. Tight deadlines. No safeguards. Same pattern. So I did something different. I sent an email. Clear. Simple. Direct. This update may cause data mismatches. Recommend delaying until validation is complete. I sent it to Greg. And a few others. Minutes passed. No reply. An hour later, Greg responded. Noted. Proceeding as planned. That was it. No discussion. No questions. Just ignored. I stared at the screen. Then slowly added it to my tracker. Date. Warning. Response. Proof. The next day, the update went live. And I waited. Not hoping it would fail. But knowing. If it did, everything would change. 2 days later, the problems started. Small at first. Then growing. Support tickets increased. Clients asking questions. Confusion spreading. I watched it happen in real time. The exact issue I warned about. Sam walked over, tense. Are you seeing this? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. He lowered his voice. This is bad. Across the room, Megan looked stressed. Derek was on a call, pacing. And Greg. He was calm. Too calm. We'll stabilize it, he said in a quick meeting. No need to overreact. But people were reacting. You could feel it. The room wasn't quiet anymore. It was uneasy. Doubt was creeping in. And for the first time, it wasn't aimed at me. Sam leaned closer. Didn't you call this? I didn't answer. I just looked at my screen. At the tracker. At the growing list. And I realized. The shift had started. They just didn't know where it was leading yet. Later that week, Megan asked me to talk. That alone surprised me. She never did that. We sat in a small meeting room. I need to ask you something, she said carefully. Okay. Did you really warn about that update? I met her eyes. Yes. She hesitated. Greg said no one raised concerns. Of course he did. I have the email, I said. Her expression changed. Not shock. Something closer to doubt. Can you send it to me? She asked. I paused. This mattered. This was the first crack in his version of things. I can, I said. But why? Megan looked down for a second. Because things aren't adding up. That was all she said. But it was enough. I sent the email. And as she read it, I saw it happen. That shift. That moment when someone starts to question everything. When she looked back up, her voice was quiet. Thank you. As she left, I sat there for a moment. Heart racing. Because now, it wasn't just me who knew the truth. The issues got worse. By Friday, leadership was asking questions. Real questions. Greg was under pressure. I could see it. Shorter answers. Tighter tone. Less confidence. That's when something unexpected happened. Sam rushed over to my desk. "They're escalating this," he whispered. "Big meeting on Monday." I nodded. Then he said something that stopped me. "They need a fix. Fast." I knew what that meant. I could fix it. I already had a solution in mind. A clean patch. Simple. Effective. I could stop everything before it got worse. Before leadership saw the full impact. Before Greg took a real hit. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. The one that would decide everything. And for the first time, I didn't jump in. Not yet. Not because I wanted things to fail, but because I needed the truth to be seen. Fully. Clearly. Without being hidden again. So I waited. Just long enough. And that decision changed the entire game. Monday morning. The room was full. Not just our team, senior leadership too. Greg stood at the front, composed, but I could see the strain. "We've identified the issue," he said. "We're working toward resolution." Working. Not resolved. That mattered. Questions came fast. How did this happen? Was there no validation? Were risks flagged? Greg answered smoothly. "We followed standard process." I felt it. That same moment from before. The setup. The shift of blame. Then he looked at me. "Some concerns were raised late," he added. Late. Not ignored. Late. I felt my chest tighten. This was it. The moment where everything could twist again. Where his version became the truth. Unless I did something. My heart pounded. My hands were steady. I opened my laptop. And for the first time, I was ready to show them everything. But I didn't speak. Not yet. Because timing was everything. And this moment was only the beginning. The room was tense. Everyone was waiting. Greg finished speaking and looked around like he had control. That's when I raised my hand. "I'd like to clarify something," I said. Every eye turned to me. Greg's jaw tightened slightly. "Go ahead." I connected my laptop to the screen. One click. My email appeared. The one I sent before the update. The warning. Clear. Time-stamped. Ignored. Silence filled the room. "I raised this risk 5 days before launch," I said calmly. Someone from leadership leaned forward. "Greg, did you see this?" Greg shifted. "I get a lot of emails." "It was marked urgent," Megan added quietly. Another pause. The air changed. This wasn't opinion anymore. This was proof. "I'm not here to assign blame," I continued. "I just want accuracy." That word landed. Accuracy. Greg forced a smile. "We'll review internally." But I could see it. The first crack, out in the open. As the meeting moved on, people weren't looking at me the same way anymore. They were thinking, questioning. And for the first time, Greg wasn't controlling the story. But this was just one email. And I had a lot more. After the meeting, everything felt different. No one said it out loud. But it was there. Megan stopped by my desk later that day. "That was helpful," she said carefully. Helpful. Not risky. Not defensive. Helpful. Derek avoided eye contact entirely. And Greg. He stayed in his office. Door closed. That never happened. By the afternoon, whispers started. "Did you see that email?" She actually flagged it early. Why wasn't it addressed? The story was shifting. Not loudly, but steadily. Sam leaned over. You just changed something big. I shook my head. I just showed one thing. He smiled slightly. Exactly. That night, I updated my tracker again. But this time, I added something new. Impact. Not just what happened, but what it caused. Missed deadlines. Client risk. Extra hours. The bigger picture. Because I realized something. One email creates doubt. A pattern creates truth. And I wasn't done showing the pattern. Not even close. The next morning, Greg called me in. Door closed again. His tone was calm, but tight. What you did yesterday, he said, was unnecessary. I stayed quiet. You could have brought that to me first. I did, I replied. That landed. He exhaled slowly. You're creating confusion. No, I said. I'm clarifying facts. His eyes hardened. This isn't how teams operate. Then how do they operate? I asked. By ignoring risks. That was the first time I pushed back directly. The room went still. Greg leaned forward. Be careful, he said quietly. Your position here is already fragile. There it was again. Liability. Pressure. Control. But something had changed inside me. I wasn't scared in the same way anymore. Because I knew something he didn't. I had proof. Not opinions. Not emotions. Proof. I understand, I said, standing up. And I did. I understood exactly what he was trying to do. But it wasn't going to work anymore. Because the more he pushed, the more he exposed himself. 2 days later, it happened again. Another issue. Different system. Same pattern. And this time, it was worse. A client paused their account. That got attention. Fast. Emergency meeting. Again. Greg looked less confident now. We're seeing unexpected complications, he said. Unexpected. I felt the weight of that word. Because it wasn't true. Not even close. I had flagged this one too. Different email. Same outcome. Ignored. The room filled with questions. More direct this time. More pressure. And then, Megan spoke up. Were there prior warnings on this? The room turned. Greg hesitated. That small pause said everything. I didn't wait. I raised concerns 3 days ago, I said calmly. All eyes on me again. Do you have that documented? Someone asked. I nodded slowly. Yes. And this time, I didn't hesitate to show it. I connected my laptop again. But this time, it wasn't just one email. It was a list. Dates. Issues. Warnings. Outcomes. Clean. Simple. Clear. I started tracking recurring risks, I explained. To understand patterns. No emotion. Just facts. I scrolled slowly. Issue after issue. Each one linked. Each one consistent. The room went silent in a different way now. Not awkward. Focused. Someone from leadership spoke first. How many of these were flagged in advance? I paused. Then answered. Most of them. That word hit hard. Most. Greg tried to step in. This is being taken out of context. But it was too late. The context was right there. Visible. Unavoidable. Megan leaned forward. Why weren't these addressed? No one answered. Because the answer was obvious. For the first time. The problem wasn't a person. It was a pattern. And that pattern had a source. The energy shifted completely. Questions weren't aimed at me anymore. They were aimed at Greg. Why push these updates so fast? Why ignore repeated concerns? Where was the review process? Greg's answers were shorter now. Less certain. We were moving quickly to meet goals. At what cost? Someone asked. Silence. That question hung in the air. Because everyone knew the answer now. I sat back, quiet. I didn't need to speak anymore. The truth was doing the work. Sam caught my eye from across the room. He didn't smile. But he nodded. Like he understood. Like everyone was finally seeing it. The meeting ended without resolution. But something bigger had happened. The story had flipped. Completely. As people walked out, I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't about me. This could have been avoided. We need to look deeper into this. And for the first time, no one used the word liability. I thought things would slow down. I was wrong. The next morning, I got an email. From HR. Subject line. Follow-up review. My stomach dropped. For a second I thought, he's still trying to push me out. Still trying to flip this back. I walked into the meeting carefully. But what I saw surprised me. It wasn't just HR. It was senior leadership. And Greg. Looking tense. We're reviewing recent project issues, one of them said. We'd like your input. My input. Not defense. Not explanation. Input. They asked clear questions. Direct ones. About process. About risks. About communication. And for the first time, I answered without holding back. Calm. Structured. Honest. When I finished, one of them nodded slowly. This is very helpful. Helpful. That word again. As the meeting ended, Greg didn't look at me. Not once. And I realized, this wasn't just about fixing problems anymore. This was about accountability. And it was finally catching up. Over the next week, everything moved fast. Audits started. Reviews. More meetings. Greg wasn't leading them anymore. He was being questioned in them. That alone said everything. Processes he pushed were being re-evaluated. Decisions he made were being reviewed. And the pattern kept showing up. Again. And again. And again. Sam stopped by one afternoon. It's all coming out, he said quietly. I nodded. I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because this wasn't done. Not fully. Then came the moment I didn't expect. Greg walked up to my desk. For the first time in weeks. His voice was lower. Careful. We need to talk, he said. I looked up. And for the first time, he didn't look in control. We sat in the same room where everything started. But this time, it felt different. Greg didn't lean back. Didn't act confident. I need your help stabilizing things, he said. That surprised me. You understand the systems better than anyone. I held his gaze. This was the same man who called me a liability. Now asking for help. I've always helped, I said calmly. He nodded. I know. No. He didn't know. Not until now. If we don't fix this fast, it gets worse, he added. I thought about it. Not emotionally. Strategically. Helping now didn't erase what happened. But it showed something else. Integrity. I'll help, I said. But everything needs to be documented properly going forward. He agreed immediately. Of course he did. Because now, he didn't have a choice. And that was the real shift. The final review meeting was set. Full leadership. Full report. Everything on the table. This time, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. The findings were presented clearly. Patterns. Decisions. Impact. It matched everything I had tracked. Exactly. No exaggeration. No spin. Just truth. Greg was asked to respond. He tried. But the confidence was gone. The gaps were too clear. The outcomes too real. Then came the final question. Do you believe these issues could have been avoided? A long pause. Greg looked down. Yes. That one word ended everything. Because it confirmed it. Not opinion. Not accusation. Acknowledgement. The room stayed quiet. But the decision was already made. And everyone knew it. The announcement came 2 days later. Greg was removed from his role. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just final. A transition, they called it. But everyone understood. The real risk had been identified and addressed. As for me, I was called into another meeting. Different tone this time. We'd like you to step into a new role, they said. More responsibility. More visibility. Actual authority. Not because I asked, but because I earned it. Not by fighting. Not by attacking. But by staying consistent, clear, and right. Sam smiled when he heard the news. About time, he said. I smiled back. But inside, it wasn't just relief. It was something deeper. Validation. Looking back, that moment still stays with me. You're a liability. Those words could have broken me. And for a while, they almost did. But here's what I learned. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Doing the right thing doesn't always get noticed right away. And sometimes, the people who speak the loudest understand the least. I didn't win by being louder. I didn't win by attacking back. I won by being prepared, by knowing my value, by keeping proof, and by choosing the right moment to speak. Because truth, on its own, is powerful. But truth, with timing, that changes everything. So if you're in a place where you feel unseen, undervalued, or pushed aside, don't rush. Don't react. Pay attention. Document. Stay steady. Because when the moment comes, and it will, you won't need to fight. The truth will do it for you. And when it does, make sure you're ready. Because that's how you stop being the liability and become the reason everything finally works.